Amen.
Good morning, church. Well, we are sharing in the same joy that heaven has, because heaven observed, heaven saw, heaven allowed, heaven orchestrated that moment that we've just witnessed with the baptism of our beloved sister, now sister. That has a good ring to it. Ariana, as well as Megan. Is that right? Megan? Megan. Okay. All righty. And that's a good thing. I did share with Rob, and Samantha's true of you as well, that today they have a double joy. A double joy. Because there was joy in the natural birth, plenty of joy, and now there's joy in the spiritual birth. And God allowed them to experience it. I was sharing with the young lady this Thursday, and I did whisper into the ear of your daughter this morning that it's just a basic truth that some people get it early and some people get it later, and some people don't get it, but they got it early. And I thank God, Paul, for the grace that he gives us to get it sometimes later. But when you get it in the ideal, then you're going to secure yourself in ways that the enemy knows what he can't do. And I'm thankful for those young ladies. Now, this morning, I am making a major transition in all of my years of preaching. I'm transitioning from written notes to this little device right here. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because it's liberating in some ways. I feel set free. But you're going to have to work with me because I'm learning this connection between this and that and this, and I've got some capable brothers working with me, Jim and Jeremy, and I'll grab Rob and Renair and Alan and anybody else who's willing to help. You too, Professor. Bear with me. Now, developing an ear, I want you to get it. This is part 2. I thought maybe with the baptisms and things, we'd have to go to part 3, but I'm going to go for my 30 minutes to get it all in this morning. Developing an ear which is not just this ear, but this is the instrumentality, but it's the spiritual level of discernment for God's voice. Now listen to me. God's salvation, God's sanctification, the way that he saves me and the way that he sets me off for his glory and for my good, the sanctification of God. And the strength that I need to get where God wants me to go. And the supply. All of that fits under, follow me now, hear me now, how well I'm going to be aligned to God's word, God's will, God's ways, and God's work. And how he keeps me under the word and the will and the ways and the work is he keeps me under his voice. Did you just follow what I just said? That's the whole Christian program in a nutshell. So when we're talking about developing, I think that's what it's about. We've got to develop an ear for God's voice. We've got to learn all of the different ways that God will and does be speaking to us in real time through the word, not apart from the word, but how he clarifies and communicates. Do you know that every sermon, every Bible class, every personal devotional time, every moment of discipling, every prayer, everything that involves itself into the program of God is about this title, Developing an Ear for God's Voice. That's all God is really trying to teach me. So by way of review, that when you are developing an ear for God's voice, there's a number of things. First of all, it's you got to understand, it's the rock solid, this is review, it's the rock solid preaching for every believer. Now, we're doing good deeds, we're doing good works, sharing and caring and all of this stuff. But the truth of the matter is, what the believer really needs from us is to help them know that there is a God that wants to bring him and her under the voice of God. All the rest of it is a way that we bring them to the understanding of the voice. Maybe I will buy a meal. Maybe I will purchase some groceries. Maybe I will feed a belly. Maybe I will do this, that, and the other. But what the believer really needs, my brother, is to help them understand that there's a God that speaks. There is a God that communicates and clarifies, and he wants to bring you under his voice. And along with that, listen, I'm not going to go through these verses, we're going through them. It's the timely counsel for every believer in doing the trial. Let me tell you something. Whenever you get 3 or 4 believers together, at least 3 or 4 of them, maybe 2 out of 4, maybe 3 or 4, are going through some trial or trouble. You can just count on it. Everybody you meet, I've said it, let me say it again. Everybody, not just many people, not just most, everybody you meet is in one of these stages. They're about to go through something, they're in something, or they're coming out of something. That's just reality. That's just the way it is. So what is God teaching? What is God instructing me to understand? That as a believer, then you need to stay under the voice of God. You need to just keep hearing. And along with that, I'm not going through these verses. We've referenced them. It's the word of truth that we must keep speaking to ourselves. I've got to speak it. I can't take off days. God deals with me in the day, because I don't have yesterday and I don't really have tomorrow promised, but I'm living in the day. So there is a day right now that God says, listen, man, you got to speak it. Get up speaking it. Wake up speaking it. That I'm only alive today to hear the voice of God. Right. And live under the blessings of that. That's my assignment in the spiritual. That I'm only woke up. I'm only aroused from my slumber to hear the voice of God. That's why he woke me up. That's why he got me up, because he says, man, this is another day. You know, like yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. This is another day to hear the voice of God. Now listen, finally, it's the lifelong learning that God will always keep before us. He'll always be telling you and me, hear my voice. He'll always be speaking it. It's like a mantra. It's like a repetition of the reorientation of my thinking from the old man to the new man, that hear my voice. It's always going to be there. Now look at this. When we are developing an ear for God's voice, we get to my right thing, there's always a learning curve. Follow me now as we go deeper into this. When God is silent or speaking, what is a learning curve? Well, you can define it in different ways. A learning curve is what I know or don't know in connection to what I need to know. That's a learning curve. It's what I know or don't know. Some of you students who are very academically inclined, even the Sanzone children who are here, so good to have you here, as well as the others who are going to be coming in for the holidays. You can probably speak it more academically than me. It's been a few years since I've been where you are. But a learning curve is what I know or don't know in relationship to what I need to know. So I want to speak for a few moments on the learning curve. Because there's something that God is teaching me when he's not really speaking. But here it is. When you look at the events of 1 Samuel 3, 1 through 10, which is where we're going, they've got to be understood, these events, in the historical big picture of 1 Samuel chapter 1. Can I take a moment and teach this? Now, what you got, go back, is a heavenly burdened wife, woman of God named Hannah. Burdened because she's barren, doesn't have children. She's mocked and jeered by the women folk. And guess what? Neither her husband nor the priest could really understand her pain. Both of them were out of sync with her. Both of them misread the moment. Her husband doesn't understand the pain. He only relates to in the sense that I love you, you love me. Get over it. But she's barren. She feels inadequate and incomplete. And the priest, well, he really misses it. He would regard her as some other type of woman that doesn't know God. And she says, no, I've got a burden. Here it is. And I'm going to pray about it. Let me say something to you. Whenever you have a prayer, there must be a pronouncement. No, I'm going to teach you this morning. Maybe this is not altogether new. But sometimes we want to see prayer as one-sided. No. When in prayer, we're speaking and God is speaking, and then we're speaking back to what we just prayed. Oh, let me show you the truth about that. In prayer, we are speaking, and then God is speaking, and then we're speaking back to God what we've just prayed about, that I'm going to do exactly what I prayed for. I'm going to align my life to that. So there is a prayer of faith and there is a pronouncement. See, that's the pronouncement part. Sometimes we forget the pronouncement part. That God, I'm going to pray and you're going to speak and then I'm going to speak right back to you. What I believe you can do. What I think you can do. No, what I know you can do. In fact, God, your credit is good for me. It's already done. If you say it, you're going to do it. I just trust you and take you at your word. Now, when you come to verses 1:19 through 26, there is an answered prayer through the birth of Samuel. Now watch this. What you read in 1 Samuel chapter 3, 1 through 10 goes back to chapter 1. Because there was a prayer that was prayed and a pronouncement about what God would do and what Hannah would do, knowing that she could trust God. Now watch this. That's this God-ordained destiny on Samuel's life from birth. It's already set in motion. This moment with Eli it goes back to what Hannah prayed. It goes back to what the mother had already prayed. Now, why do I point that out? Because you've got to attach the problem to a faith-based prayer to unleash the promise. You've got to attach whatever problem you're going through a prayer to unleash the promise. That's what she does. Now, not only is there a connection in 1 Samuel 3 with 1 Samuel 1, there's a connection with 1 Samuel 3 with 1 Samuel 2. Stick with me now. 1 Samuel 2, 12 through 17, the spiritual and moral wickedness of the sons of Eli. Watch this now. Watch this. Now, the sons of Eli were corrupt. Just read along with me. They did not know the Lord. Now, that's interesting, my sister, because later when he speaks about Samuel did not know, he puts in a word that's substantial. Did not yet know. Not so of these folks. They didn't know, didn't want to know, and would not know. That's a difference. They did not know the Lord, therefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for the men abhorred the offering of the Lord. And 1 Samuel 2, 22 through 25, what you've got is closed hearts, closed minds, and closed ears that invites. Don't let it scare you. Let it readjust you. Don't let it scare you. Let it be a readjusting, an aha moment that invites the judgment of God on the household of Eli. Nevertheless, they did not heed the voice of their father because the Lord desired to kill them. He had already made a choice. He had already made a decision that, you know what? I will not intervene. I will not interject more divine guidance. I'll just stand down and let this thing play out the way it's going to play out. So here it is. Here's the life goal. Here's the life goal. And then we're into 1 Samuel chapter 3. Don't go too far in a season of non-hearing. Now, ideally, I don't really want to go a minute or a second or a day, but come on, let's be real. Sometimes we will fall into non-hearing. Let's be honest. Remember I told you there's a Sunday talk and a Monday talk? I'm in my A game on Sunday. I'm somewhere in between on Monday. That's just a reality. I don't have to implode into debauchery and disobedience, but sometimes I'll struggle with issues on Monday that I will worship and proclaim on Sunday. That's just reality. But don't go too far. You've got to know when enough is enough. You've got to know when the envelope is being pushed too far. You've got to know when, wait a minute, this doesn't even feel good to me. I'm a bit down the road too far. Now, here it is. When we are making I'm going to talk about transition from silence to the speaking voice of God. Understand what silence is. It's not that God is not speaking, but he's speaking in a different language. He's speaking in a different way. He's trying to get your attention in a different way. And when he's about to move you from silent to speaking, what you've got to understand is there's a wide range of emotions that I need to address in God's silence. Here they are, at least 5 emotions, could be more. Fear, here it is. Frustration. I've been in ministry for a few weeks, and sometimes I've seen people be very fearful because they don't know the clarifying voice of God. They're in God-awful situations. I've seen it. You have seen it. And there's a phobos, there's a phobia. And along with that, there is a frustration, an irritation, and an agitation, a kind of upsetting moment, because what they want to know, they don't really feel like they know. And out of that, they start fussing, a fussy spirit. Fussing at people, fussing at God even. And also, wait a minute, there is a forgetting. I start forgetting what God has already done. Let me tell you something I have learned, and I'm still having to get conviction on that. When I don't understand the God of my present, I have perfect clarity with the God of my past. When I don't understand the God of my present, I've got perfect clarity with the God of my past. I know what God has done. I don't have time to go into cognitive dissonance between what's happening right now, because I understand what God has already done, and that will sustain me if my heart is right. Then we go into forsaking. Now, God's silence, listen, is an opportunity for right learning. Here's the first thing. I'm learning to raise difficult questions that can shipwreck my faith. I'm talking about when I'm in a silent moment. Sometimes when the doctor gives me a diagnosis, I can move into a silent moment. Sometimes when I get a pink slip, I can move into a silent moment. Sometimes when my marriage is in trouble, I can move. When I'm lonely, on top of loneliness, in my singleness, I can go into a silent. When the bills are due, when not only the bills in the budget, but the bills of my own indiscretions, and I'm going through my go through. Listen, there's not the clarifying word of God, then that's a learning curve. That's a learning moment. And here it is. Here's the first thing. Habakkuk said in Habakkuk 1:13, why are you silent? Isn't it amazing he can be that real with God? Can I tell you something, church? Sometimes you can be more real with God than church folks. Sometimes church folks have just enough Bible in them that you can't be real with them. Man, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't think that. But God says you can keep it 100 with me. You can be real with me, you see. You don't have to hedge and you don't have to hold back. You can just lay it on the line. And Habakkuk is laying it on the line. God, why are you silent when the wicked swallow us up those more righteous than they? And I think you might have shared that verse on one occasion. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think. Now watch this. I'm also learning to be truth speaking about being at a breaking point in a spiritual crisis. I can be real that God in the natural, and last time I look, I'm still in the natural. I'm still dealing with real life issues. That I can be honest about it. I can be real about it. I don't have to be disgraceful and disrespectful. But I can be real to God. That God, I'm struggling. I'm battling. I'm grappling. And I'm at a breaking point. But let me say this before I read this passage in Job. Your terminology matters. In the natural, you're at a breaking point. In the spiritual, say I'm at a breakthrough point. That's the language I speak. In the natural, I'm at a breaking point, but in the spiritual, I'm at a breakthrough point. I'm going to break through. I'm going to break out of this. Now listen, Job said, I cry out to you. You might have read this verse. Cry is cry. This is not low tone. This is a very passionate and vehement kind of talking. But you do not answer. Isn't it amazing that righteous man, that God-fearing man can say that? But now this, catch this. But you literally look at me. I mean, you ain't doing nothing about it, and I just feel like you're just looking at me. Nothing changes. Why are you looking at me so much? Do something about it. That's what he's feeling. And sometimes you'll feel that. You don't have to admit it to church. You don't have to raise your hand, just wink your eye. Sometimes you'll feel God. But here's the point. God says, man, the amazing thing about it, you still ain't got it. How many years you been in Christ? While you're looking at me, I'm looking at you. And I'm looking to see if you're going to be what I need you to be, do what I need you to do, go where I need you to go, so that you can get out of the way and I can do God. So here it is. You do this ruthlessness. That's what I'm feeling. With the might of your hand, this is really amazing stuff. You are attacking me. You know what, by the way, he might have felt that way after his 3 friends got finished with him. They were sure enough attacking. You know, amazing about those 3 friends. The best thing they did was when they got there, they kept silent. It went downhill when they started to speak because God was not speaking through them. Now listen. I'm learning to be on guard against the spirit of deception. Watch this now, Psalms 50:21. Read that verse, get it in your heart, your spirit. David said it, David enunciated it, that these things you have done, and I have been, God said it through the instrumentality of David, that I have been silent, and you thought that I was one like yourself, but now I rebuke you and lay charge before you. If you're a parent, you can identify with this because, you know, sometimes even when there is a mess up, you'll just keep silent. And the kid probably thinks, okay, I guess you can understand. You up with this. No, you're not up with it at all. You're just going to deal with it in your own time and way, right? God says that's what's happening. You thought because I was silent that I said, hey, I approve of it, I accept it. Not so. Now I'm going to address the situation. Now, here's the thing. Divine silence doesn't mean approval. It just means timing. Now, he transitions Samuel from silence to hearing, and I'm looking at the time, and I'm determined I'm not going to go 30, so we're going to part 3. I'm going to stick to this thing, Jim. 30 minutes, that's all I want. I don't want any more than that. Okay. Listen. Don't confuse God's voice. Now, this is where I'll just introduce this and we'll wrap up. Don't confuse God's voice. This is a good way to get into this primary text because you're going to see something that's said about Samuel that needs to be understood in the context of the voice of God. Don't confuse God's voice with religious roles and assignments and appointments and positions. Watch this. Now the boy Samuel ministered to the Lord before Eli. That word ministered, you can study it. It's an attendant. It doesn't imply any major monumental work. It's like a waiter that's just waiting on. That's it. He's doing not menial tasks, but low-level tasks. He's just answering to whatever Eli needs him to do. He's just doing whatever needs to be done for that moment, for that day. Nothing big and monumental, but it's preparatory. And along with that, it says something that you cannot overlook. That in the backdrop of that the word of God was rare in those days, and there was no widespread revelation. In the big picture days and in the days of Samuel, he's living in a moment of divine silence. it's rare like a jewel. It's not a lot of that type, so that it makes it precious. And also, he's on this level, and so God is not speaking to him on that level in a way that he's going to speak to him, but it's time for him to step up on a higher level, and the voice of Eli is going to be replaced by the voice of God. Whenever you step up, you'll understand that. Now here it is. Catch this. There's a number of things you got to watch out for. Don't confuse the voice of God with your position. I'm talking to me, and your assignment and your ministry. You've got to separate your assignment from the voice of God. They're not one in the same. You see what happens is there is the assumption of pride that because I'm in this position, maybe I don't even need to hear God's voice. Watch it now. Be careful now. Every assignment requires the voice of God. Every assignment. It doesn't matter whether it's pastor or a preacher or deacon or somebody who's over the water fountain committee. You want to ask them, are you into hearing God's voice? Are you really into following God? Are you really into adhering your life to God? So here it is, that if you're not careful, you'll fall into the assumption of pride that my position is sufficient. And it's not sufficient. You need God speaking to you. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care how long you've been doing it. I don't care how good you think you are at doing it. You really do need the voice of God. And then there is the indifference of just being busy. Sometimes, Angie, I'm just so busy, I can't hear God. No, I'm just so busy. And I substitute the voice of God for busyness. And what happens is there is what you said it, there is activity but not accomplishment. Because I'm not really hearing God's voice. Sometimes the best thing I can do is not only slow down, but sit down and hear God. Not only slow down, but be sat down to hear God. And that's when God is speaking sometimes, when I'm in my sitting position and in my kneeling position. But don't, husband, can I tell you, you're never too busy to hear God. Wife, can I tell you, you're never too busy to hear God. Christian, can I tell you, you're never too busy to hear God. Don't get so busy that substitutes the voice of God. And then there is this back and forth talk with each other. That doesn't substitute. Remember I told you as I wrap up, there's only 4 voices in the world. Come on, get this. The voice of God, the voice of the enemy, the voice of self, and the voice of others. That's the only. Now I'm being facetious. Maybe when I'm indulging into something, there's more voices. But that's a whole nother sermon. Did you catch that? Maybe when I'm drinking and sniffing something, there's all kinds of voices. The trees are talking, but that's a whole different subject, you know. There's really only 4 voices in the world. The voice of God, the voice of the enemy, and the voice of self, the voice of others, and that's going to define your destiny. Now, here it is. Watch out now, the back and forth talk with others. That's not a substitute for the voice of God. The Bible does say there is wisdom in the multitude of counsel, but make sure it's God's counsel, not just folks talking. Then comes the transition. And we're going to get into this next time. Can you give me one more week on this? Just kind of a 3-part mini-series. And you're going to see this transition that's going to set the stage for everything that Samuel becomes that you admire. I'm so ready to learn it again. I need this lesson. I really do need, just beginning a new ministry, just beginning a new assignment, just beginning a new call. I'm telling you, I need this message. I need to hear God's voice. I need to hear God, what God is speaking to me, what he's going to be speaking to me, because I need it. It ain't just that I want it, I need it. And so does this church. Because, church, I think, listen, it ain't got nothing to do with me, but I think that when you prayed for revival in January 22, that you're beginning to see the manifestation of that. And so you've got to really be open to the voice of God. You've got to really be open to the voice of God. You see, here it is. Come on, I promise you I'm close. Do you remember that commercial years ago? Do you remember that commercial years ago? I remember it was back in maybe the 90s. And I know one of the cell phone people. You remember he was talking, and I guess he kept backing away to it, and he said, "Can you hear me now?" You remember that? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? And you know what God is saying? That listen, that you've got to keep hearing me. And maybe I feel right here, and he says, "Can you hear me now?" And maybe I'll pull back here. It's not that I'm still Jehovah Shammah, the God who is present, but maybe you got to understand that I'm still speaking. So as God begins to manifest in this church, we got to say like the pilgrim, there's only two things I want to know in life. Has God spoken on a matter? And what has he said? That's all I want to know. And when God begins to speak, he needs listening ears. We're going to go deeper into this. Hey, right now, church, this is a moment for you to say, "God, you know what? I need to make my call and election sure, like two folks did this week. And I am outside of the Ark of Covenant, and I need, if Ariana and Macon can figure it out, I can figure it out. I need to hear the gospel. I need to hear the gospel. That's the good news over the bad news. And I need to repent because sin ain't working anyway. It ain't even working. I get that. And I need to confess Jesus as the Son of God. I need to do that. And yes, I need to be baptized. I need to be baptized, that there will be, Acts 2:38, a remission of sins. 1 Peter 3:21, a kind of clearing of the consciousness of innocence before God. Romans 6, that I may be raised up in newness of life. And if you're carrying a sin or a burden, I beg and plead, listen, come on. We're in a movement right now. God is moving, that you should not leave this building just letting the church know, hey, I'm going through something. I'm dealing with something. I am grappling with something. And the devil doesn't want me to speak, but I'm going to speak it so that you can join me in praying for me. Let's stand right now as we stand.